What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am here to do a video about a couple things. I am going to talk about the big news with Flores. I am going to touch on the game against the Patriots really fast too. But before I do want to mention and talk about, my absence the past few days. I apologize for that. I had some issues with my computer. I was having some hard drive issues. The computer that I bought a couple years ago, the disk space, it was kind of a small drive, and I knew I was going to have to take care of this eventually, and it came up now. I had low disk errors and stuff like that, so it was causing me some problems. Unfortunately, though, I tried to do it myself, and I kind of screwed it up along the way, so I ended up having to take it in to Geek Squad and have them do it, somebody professionally handle it for me. So I got that done, but unfortunately it did keep me knocked out for a few days, and I was unable to do my preview for the game. I was unable to do the live stream or the post-game analysis, so I am going to talk about that briefly here in a minute, but I just wanted to let you guys know, why I was gone for the past few days and so on and so forth. But it did actually end up turning into a little bit of a happy accident, because it gave me an opportunity and, motivated me to take advantage of the opportunity, to, upgrade my quality, my production quality here for you guys. And, so as you probably already saw, I have a new intro. I also have a new outro that I put together last night. I hope you guys really enjoy those. And I am looking to do more. I am going to try and do some stuff to work on my background to make that a little bit more Dolphins-y and a little bit less of my room. So I am going to be working on that. Hopefully I'll be able to do some stuff with that soon. But in the meantime, I am definitely pouring some efforts into making my video production better for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys appreciate it. And with that, now let me go ahead and get into the hot topics. So the first thing I want to talk about is the game. And, look, they played a pretty solid game overall against a tough team. Of course, there are mistakes, issues, penalties, things that need to be cleaned up and fixed for sure. But for a good majority of the game, they kind of, there was a little bit of dominance there. I mean, it wasn't a completely dominant performance by any stretch. And the defense definitely let them come back a bit, towards the end and so on and so forth. But it was a good game. As you probably noticed, the Xavier Howard pick six I used as one of my clips for my my intro video. So, hope you like that. I enjoyed it. Put a smile on my face. And it was good to get the win, though, against a tough team that's going to the playoffs. Now, that's the flip side to this whole thing is it's just so Dolphins to, win a game like this. And frankly, you can be fair and say that if it was a 16-game schedule, then we would have ended the season at 8-8. But it did give us the opportunity with that extra game to have back-to-back winning seasons, so that's fun for us, even though it ultimately doesn't mean anything in the long haul because we didn't make it to the playoffs. Flores got fired, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But they did get to 9-8, which, by the way, I would like to throw in, just for the record, that as it turns out, I was right about our record being 9-8. That was my ceiling. Obviously, I had my original record, my revised prediction, and they ended up at my revised prediction at 9-8. Now, just so you know, I will be doing a video later, a separate video that is going to be, the 2021 season recap. So I'll actually go through and talk about that a lot more in depth and, tell you, what my original prediction was, what my revised prediction was, when I made those predictions, what they were, and how things changed. I will go through each of the different games and, show you, what it is that I predicted, how things changed over the season, etc., etc. We'll go through all of that. But as it turns out, they did get to 9-8 and reached my ceiling for them on this season. Now, unfortunately, I was right about that because, again, it's not something that I want to be right. I want this team to succeed, but I do want the record to be clear. And, yeah, credibility where credibility's due. So I did get that one right, although and I got some other things right this season, like the Chiefs, the Tennessee Titans, and how well they're doing even without Derrick Henry. I was right about the Bills taking the division, that the Patriots were going to make it in as a wild card team. And ultimately, that's why this game is unimportant to us, because they still make the playoffs and we don't. But, I was right about that. To be fair, I was wrong about some other things. I thought the Jets could maybe squeak out 5 wins. They only got to 4. The Ravens kind of fell apart. And I figured they would have been a little bit more competitive throughout the season than they were. So I wasn't right about everything, but you can't hit on 100%. Of course. So, but, just to make sure, full context, full record, I was right about some things. I was wrong about some things, even when it comes to this coaching situation, and that's actually a good segue into the whole Brian Flores thing. Now, as you guys know, I actually was originally somebody who said that if things didn't, if they didn't meet expectations this season in year 3 of this rebuild, which were at least 10 plus wins, make it to the playoffs, and, I said compete within the division. Now, they had a chance to do all of that, obviously failed, but I said that if they did, my original prediction is that Grier and Flores would get fired at the end of the season. Now, I only ended up being half right, because Flores got fired. The 7 straight wins and the back-to-back winning seasons wasn't enough to keep him. We're going to talk about more of that, because it turns out that I was very right about who Brian Flores was, whether, everything that I've said about him over the past 3 years, whether it be how he's treated players like Kenny Stills, Mika Fitzpatrick, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Kyle Van Noy, Laramie Tunsil, Xavier Howard, Tua, right? Throughout his time here, he hasn't been great at drafting and developing in a lot of ways, right? And a lot of the decisions he's made in those in those departments. Then you add in the fact that he's an egotistical guy who can't deal with alphas. I was right about all of that, right? And so, it is what it is. Then, he's obviously also willing to do shady shit and lies constantly. So, look, turned out to be right about all that. I was half right about the firing situation. I thought they would both go, but it only turned out to be Flores. Now, the thing about that is, for me, is obviously, I never liked Flores, and I never thought he would be the long-term guy. And, especially with these videos, which I do need to do. I also need to do my 2020 video for you guys. The one for the draft class or whatever. I do need to do my 2020 whatever. So I will get to that, but that's another time. But as you guys should know, when it comes to Grier, I think that he can make some good picks, but for me, it's basically just whoever's in charge, right? And so that now segues me into this whole coaching search. Now, we're actually going to talk a little bit about some of these candidates and stuff. Jim Harbaugh is one of the top ones. We will get into that. But for me, the thing about Jim Harbaugh or Jim Caldwell or a coach of that caliber and experience is that I believe a guy like that, and if this happened, I would be okay with Grier taking orders from that kind of coach, because it's a coach that had, like Jim Harbaugh, for example. Honestly, if I'm keeping it real, that would be the most ideal situation for me right now, because he's an experienced guy who can come in, he can take charge, he can handle business, he can run the show, he can put together a really good coaching staff. And look, I have a little bit of optimism that we might even be able to luck into this situation. I say luck into it because it is lucky that Harbaugh and Greg Roman and some of his other, coaching assistants, experienced veteran coaching assistants that he would want to bring over here should be all coming available basically all at the same time. It's super lucky, but hopefully we can take advantage of it. Now, Stephen Ross has said that he is not actively courting Harbaugh to come here. He's apparently even said that reports are that he's actually trying to get Harbaugh to stay at Michigan and trying to help him get a higher contract and get paid more. But I would venture to guess that if Harbaugh decides to leave Michigan, Stephen Ross is going to do everything in his ability to go after him. And he definitely should, because I think that would, under the circumstances and everything that we have, I think that would be the most ideal situation. Now, having said that, I don't know. We obviously have to we have to wait and see how that plays out over the next few weeks. But just kind of getting into some of the current list of candidates, I will go ahead and pop over my screen so you can see here. Dan Quinn from the Cowboys is an option. You have Kellen Moore from the Cowboys, who's also an option. Let's see, where is it? I can find that. Here's one. Vance Joseph from the Cardinals is an option. Kellen Moore, you can see here. Vance Joseph. Brian Dable from the Bills is also an option. And then Mike McDaniels from the 49ers is also an option. So, and I think if I'm not mistaken, Eric Bieniemy might also be on that list. But either way, so those are the list of guys. Now look, some of those, Dan Quinn, he's an experienced guy. Dabo, I'd be all right with him as a first-time head coach. Now, I'd be less confident in Grier remaining as the GM if it ends up being either just like, some fresh first-time head coach that hasn't really done anything yet and, doesn't have the experience and might not have that Rolodex, or a veteran guy who's just been around for a while, but, doesn't really know people, or hasn't really done anything. I would feel less confident with Grier being the GM in that case, because then it would just kind of end up being another half-assed fucking organizational rebuild that could end up failing down the stretch. Now, some of those other guys like Dan Quinn and whatever, those are experienced guys. I'd feel better about that being the situation, but I really do think the Jim Harbaugh situation probably is the most ideal, if I'm just keeping it, completely honest. And so we'll have to see how that plays out, but that's what I'm hoping personally happens. Or if not him, then Jim Caldwell, or then you just go down the list of veterans. I would take the veteran over the newbie any day of the week. But you go down the list of who's the most experienced with the best pedigree, the biggest Rolodex, the largest Rolodex of guys he can bring in, experienced top-tier coaches, etc. Jim Harbaugh currently leads that list if they do court him, and I guarantee that Stephen Ross, they obviously talk. So if Harbaugh does decide to leave, then that would be a great situation, especially because then but anyway, real quick before I move on to that, and then you just go down the list, and those are your criteria, right? So then if not him, then who's the next most experienced guy with the best pedigree and the largest Rolodex, right? Et cetera, and you work your way down. Now, when it gets to the first-year guys, I think Dable would probably be at the top of the list there, but I'm not really excited for that because I don't want another first-year head coach, if I'm being honest. For me, if I had to choose, it would be Harbaugh and what he can bring for sure. Now, there's an additional piece to that because with the Brian Flores firing, it looks like it is changing the landscape a bit about the Deshaun Watson stuff. Now, and Tua's future. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that, Tua's relationship with the organization is going to be good enough that it can be repaired. Maybe his camp still wants to get out of there. Maybe they do still end up giving up on him and move on from him, what have you. Who knows? Maybe they do go after Watson. We do have to wait and see how that plays out, but it does change the dynamic a bit. Now, I would feel with a clean Watson and no off the field issues coming in with a Jim Harbaugh, I'd actually feel pretty damn good with that situation. Or Tua with Jim Harbaugh in that situation. So for me, I think that ideally I think the most ideal situation would be getting Jim Harbaugh in here and the kind of coaches he can bring in to, build up a top tier coaching staff while that having, very little transition issues, and then also giving Greer the best opportunity to actually be successful because he's taking his marching orders from a guy who knows what the fuck he's doing, right? So, and then you stick with Tua because I do think that he can be the guy, and you just build around him, you invest in him, and with, a guy like Harbaugh, maybe we can get a Breece Hall in the first round and get that stud running back, and maybe they'll actually address the offensive line properly and figure out how to actually build a good offensive line and have a good coach and so on and so forth, right? So, and then that way you don't have to give away that draft capital, the cap space for Watson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the risks that are associated with all of that and whatnot. And then that way you would be able to take a Breece Hall because you'd still have a first round pick, even though it's the 49ers pick, right? So anyway, we do have to wait and see how all that plays out, but that is how I would personally prefer to see it play out. But you never know. So right now, and if you look at the official list of head coaches, obviously he's not on there as of right now, but we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, though, for me, as far as me being able to have confidence in the direction of this organization, it really is going to all hinder on who Stephen Ross ultimately brings in as the next head coach. And, if I think he's going to be able to work well with Chris Greer, or if I think it's going to turn into just another half-assed, whatever, where Greer ends up getting fired in a year or two, but then he retains the coach, whatever. It's just, I don't want to be back in that cycle, so I'm hopeful, but I'm cautiously optimistic about it, and we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Otherwise, though, that is going to wrap this video up, so with that, I am going to get out of here. Before I do, make sure you check out the Rave On Sports App, the new fan-driven sports app for all of your sports, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, college, whatever you like, they got it, and they're looking to enhance your game day experience with live play-by-play coverage, live chats with other fans and content creators like myself, while also providing an arena for you to dispute the terrible officiating that is so frequent and rampant throughout the league, all the leagues. And so make sure you look for the links to that in the description box. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at DillonTartaro, as well as on Instagram at Dolphins_with_Dillon. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.
Miami wins it.